Hey guys, what's up? Man Bear Pope here. So today what I want to do is I wanted to give my thoughts on Outriders so far. And just to be clear, I bought the game after they had a lot of the issues at launch with the servers and various other connectivity problems that we're seeing. So far, and I think I'm fairly deep into the story now. When I first saw Outriders, it wasn't even an advertisement. When I first saw it, I remember thinking it was kind of strange that the game just kind of showed up on people's radars. Like, I don't recall seeing an advertising campaign for it or really any like media presence at all. It just kind of showed up. I think I watched the Rad Brad play the demo, which was my first exposure to it, and I kind of went, hey, that's really cool. Okay, when it comes out, I'll think about getting it. Now that I've been playing it, so far I found it to be a genuinely enjoyable game. Whether it's the gameplay, whether it's the storyline, the storyline it's intriguing. When I first saw it, when I first fired it up and started it off, the whole going away from Earth, we're the last vestiges of humanity, there's no backup, there's nothing else out there but us, and just what we've got here. I got big Mass Effect Andromeda vibes from it, which was kind of interesting, because I liked the story in Mass Effect Andromeda. And playing Outriders so far, I continue to be reminded of that as the story goes on. The characters have been interesting. I think the whole 31-year time jump forward was very interesting. I think as far as being like a looter shooter type of game, that piece of it I've enjoyed. I love looter games. I love games where there is loot and there is basically that dice roll that you don't know what you're going to get. You might get something great. You might get something absolutely terrible. But I absolutely love watching or playing a game like that. It's one of the reasons I'm a huge 7 Days to Die fan, because obviously you can go in POIs and loot whatever you want. But Outriders, in that same vein, you can go out, you can search for the sneaky boxes, you can take out the some of the stronger enemies, and they'll kind of drop you better and better gear. So it's that piece of it I've been really enjoying so far. I think the characters have been interesting also. And the story to me feels like a bit of a slow burn, which I'm perfectly okay with. And this is where there might be a couple spoilers if you haven't gotten that far in the game yet. So when you're first making the push to get to the forest, when you get to that gate, which is actually something else I want to talk about, the fight at that gate was such a departure from what other fights were. It felt to me like the first real proper ambush the game springs on you. I actually had to drop the world tier. I think I was at world tier 7. I had to drop it back down to 6 and basically use all my powers as soon as I got them to get through that portion of it. But I like that. I like that the game ramps up in challenge the more it goes on, that you're not just sitting there, wading through layers and layers and waves of enemies like a hot knife through butter. I enjoy that challenge. I'd much rather have the game be challenging than have it be too easy and go, well, okay, that was fun, but meh. I think the game benefits from being more challenging. But getting back to the story, as the story goes on, when you're making the push out to the forest, I like how you meet Chana. I like how you start to get a little bit more of Jakob's backstory with that. I like how they introduce Bailey, and she's a real bitch and just hates you, and she's like, okay, I guess I'll go, but you think she's probably relaying stuff back to, I forget who the leader of Trenchtown is, but that guy. and there's all this stuff going on. And to me, that was all very enjoyable. That was, it was pleasant. It's a bit like reading a book in my mind. It's not just a single, revelation. Oh, here you go. Here's the big thing. It's repeated little bits of information. Plus we get a lot of the backstory of both of characters and of the world in the various notes that we can find. But the story and the way it unfolds, I think, it's quick enough to be interesting, but it's slow enough where it's kind of like a trail of breadcrumbs. You kind of want more as it goes on. So it leaves you wanting to get to that next story element. The gameplay itself is fantastic. The gameplay itself is awesome. I like, that it's kind of cover-based. I like that depending upon the skills that you have, your level, the perks, that you can just basically try to be a wall and absorb a ton of damage and output a ton of damage. I like that it basically puts you into an area and it's like, okay, here you go, do what you want. It's not just, the game doesn't baby you, but it also doesn't, it also doesn't give you, the areas that you actually fight in aren't too constrained. They're large enough to move around. They're large enough to kite enemies around if you have to, for instance, during boss fights or if a particularly difficult enemy shows up. But they're a decent size. I think the battles by and large, and I've been playing on single player. I haven't played with other people too often. I think the battles by and large are perfectly manageable for one person playing it, which pleases me as somebody who genuinely loves single player games. I really, really like that. So overall, I would give what I've seen of the game so far pretty high marks. And I'm in the desert at this point. I just did the mission for Chana to get a bunch of weapon parts, and she built me she gave me a legendary weapon as compensation for it. So I've been playing through it pretty frequently, and again, it's an enjoyable game. If you're somebody who's on the fence about it and you like either games with an intriguing story, games that have, again, in my opinion, interesting story elements to it and interesting characters, and really a well thought out world design, get Outriders, because I think it'll check all of those boxes. But that's what I'm going to leave this one. If you guys see this, I'm genuinely curious. What are your thoughts about the game? Have you played it? Have you not played it? Are there things you like or don't like about it? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be really curious to read those. But I'm going to leave this here. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you next time.